VenomousStare back with This Week in Fantasy, talking a little bit of fantasy football, talking about the first round of the playoffs of my league, as well as the real-life playoff race. So the teams that made the playoffs were Weston with ease, the team that I said was the best in the preseason, another great year for him. Lily narrowly made the wild card, and at the very end of the season there was this epic struggle where Ryan, Spencer, and Cgauch were all 7-7, and Spencer got embarrassed to cap off his massive blown lead, a collapse on the level of Ben's Metzian collapse last year, and then Ryan lost as well. So Cgauch took a victory home and remarkably made it to the playoffs after beginning the season 0-5. You often hear about this curse of Cgauch meme, and what that comes down to is the fact that no matter how bad it looks for Cgauch, he is seemingly never out of it. So 0-5 to 8-7 in the playoffs, good for Cgauch. And then as far as my division goes, Aaron with another disappointing season. JP cooled off when the bye weeks hit as expected. I was a complete disaster right out the gate. None of my picks really hit except for Hurts. And AB put up a solid little season. And if you look at points scored, he's cooking. He's the most points scored. So good on AB. His third year, he came around and put up a winning record. You'll notice that Cam had a losing record, and it was another one of those seasons where it looked like Cam might have just been able to like autopilot to the playoffs, but of course he didn't. So the game center. Unfortunately, they played most of these games on Saturday. So both of these matchups have sort of already been decided. And we can see that Weston here is going to take down Lily. They're about even in points, but Weston has 3 people to go and Lily has Mike Evans left. So Weston's almost certainly going to win. The Bengals just look really good in terms of both T. Higgins and Jamar Chase have had a lot of value this year. The Bengals are probably like the 4th or 5th best team in the league. For my money, I think that the Eagles are best, then it's the Chiefs, then it's the Bills, and then after that you're sort of looking around for the 4th best team, and it's not necessarily so clear. A lot of people think Dallas is really good. I don't believe in Dallas. The Cowboy game today, the Cowboys had to fight tooth and nail to barely beat the Gardner Minshew-led Philadelphia Eagles at home. And this was a team where Philly stooged the ball away multiple times on stupid turnovers. And it didn't matter at all because Dallas was just barely able to win. And they kicked a field goal at the end to make it a 6-point game. But ultimately, it was not a very convincing win. It was against the backup. Remember, Dallas is going to have to win in Philly against Jalen Hurts when the chips are down. So I just don't think they can do that because even with the defense popping off and making some crazy plays, it was still very, very close. I just don't really believe in Dallas, honestly. The Chargers are a very poorly coached team. I don't believe in them in any capacity. They're one of these teams that's on the bubble. The whole NFC South is a fucking disgrace. Brady definitely should have retired. It's a shame that divorce shit happened. And the Bucks wouldn't have just been terrible this year. That would have been nice to see. The Panthers are a disgrace, but are somehow competing for a playoff spot. That's how bad the NFC South is. If you saw the game against Detroit where the Panthers put up like 570 yards from scrimmage against the hapless Detroit Lions defense. For weeks, the Lions have been showing grit and look like an improved team, but they went back to the week 1 through 5 Lions and were just completely soft on defense. Very easy to run on, and incredible amounts of big plays being given up. So the Lions really lost a game they needed badly to win because, as expected, the Giants lost. And the Giants are a team that had an insane amount of hype that you knew was going to fall off. And this was a Giants team that a lot of people were saying some wild shit like, oh, it's going to be a magical season. Same with the Jets. Both of those teams were 7-2, 7-3. They had some hope and it looked like they weren't going to be terrible for once. Shit, if there's 17 games and you played 9 or 10 of them and you have 7 wins, even if you lose the rest of them, you still won 7 games. It's better than what they've been doing. Well, they pretty much have lost every single game since then, both of them. For the Jets, it comes down to Breece Hall going down. He was very talented. And Zach Wilson being completely inept. And they brought Mike White in after Mike White was sort of usurped by Wilson. Wilson was a little banged up. Came back, and then it was like, oh shit, well, Wilson's terrible and undisciplined and doesn't take accountability for his actions. Then Mike White went down, and now the Jets are just in stunning free fall. And it's sick, too, because their defense is really good. And in a very weak year, this is probably the weakest year we've seen in the NFL in the last 20 years. The Jets would have been able to make a wild card spot. Remember, the wild card format has been extended where an extra team makes it, so it's even easier to get in, and it was just a horrific year in terms of quality. A lot of teams that are just perennially very good and like top 10 teams are horseshit this year. Like the Pats, they're unbelievably bad. Mac Jones hasn't developed at all. They can't run consistently. The game planning doesn't look as sharp. They've lost some dumb games. And I think it's sort of funny to see Belichick falter a bit after Brady left. When Brady left, he immediately won a Super Bowl and was hard carrying his team and being great. Yeah, this divorce year is sort of a joke, and they've been decimated by injuries, and they're still threatening to win the division. But Belichick just looks lost. That the Pats haven't really been the same since, ever since Brady left. That aura of, oh, we're going to have to go play the Pats in Foxborough, that's just not there anymore. A lot of people think that it is just because they've been sort of conditioned to think that it is because it's been that way for like 20 years, but at the end of the day, it's not that way anymore. The Pats have lost some stinker games. They have not looked as well coached as they have in the past. I think a lot of like offensive sharpness and cohesion, if you have an S-class like carry level Bonjour quarterback, that stuff just falls into place and makes the coaching staff look better than they really are. So I just love to see Belichick lose and just sort of vindicate how great Brady is. Even though this season, yeah, it's been a fucking joke. But the Dolphins have looked above average in that division. The Bills are really good as well. And to me, that like Josh Allen will just look retarded. I know it sounds sort of weird, but he's very inconsistent, and it's not inconsistent in the way that like Dak Prescott is inconsistent, where he'll throw at people's feet just because he's sort of bad. Josh Allen will just do like the most insanely stupid things imaginable, like go for random pitches. And the bigger the game, the more prone he is to do these stupid things. So I honestly just don't trust the Bills that much. The Bills are probably going to play the Chiefs at some point in the playoffs, right? Well, I really trust Mahomes far more than I trust Josh Allen, who, at this point to me, is still a bit of a regular season player. I know they've won playoff games, obviously, but this is a team that just lights it up in the regular season, especially early on this year. They were just destroying everyone, and they had the best offense in the league. They had the most yards per game. Them and the Eagles were two teams that came out very hot, and I think they're both two teams that are legitimate and very talented and a threat to win the Super Bowl. I just don't really trust Allen to get past the Chiefs. I feel like that's one of those classic close games, but even if they do get past the Chiefs, the stage is never bigger than in the Super Bowl, and even though Allen is one of these stat sheet stuffers, especially for fantasy because he likes to run, at the end of the day, I just don't trust him in the playoffs as much as I do a guy like Mahomes. And this has been a really poor year for the NFL in general if we think about some of the teams that were supposed to be great. These perennial top 10 teams I was referring to earlier, let's just list some of them. Well, we talked about the Patriots earlier, and they're just not any good. They'll probably miss the playoffs. The Rams, the defending Super Bowl champions, have been fucking horrific. Stafford hasn't looked good. The defense hasn't looked good. Donald's gone a bit downhill. The receivers haven't been explosive. Cooper Kupp went down. The running backs have been a fucking fiasco. They want to play the Cam Akers game. Darrell Henderson was so horrific, they just straight up cut him. It was just a terrible year for the Rams. The Cards even worse. This is a disaster sewer team, and don't give me the injury excuse. And this is one thing that you have to really consider in the NFL that a lot of people will try to do is all teams deal with injuries, guys. There's not a single team in the NFL that has an empty injury reserve roster. And you can't let people gaslight you and say, like, oh, it's just the injuries. Like, that's a contributing factor, sure, and some teams have them worse than others. But if you look at a team like the Giants, that was a team that had a bunch of lucky comeback wins. They won in close games. They won against teams that were overrated. And whenever they were 7-2 and people were acting like they were a legitimate playoff threat, it was like, look, they're going to have to come back to earth. And just because they had a couple guys go down doesn't mean that they were actually really good earlier on. It just means that, they found the mean, as it were. Sort of like Spencer this season, Kappa. But the Giants were not a real threat. The Jets were not a real threat, although I like their defense. And whenever I think about these perennially really good teams I was talking about, the Packers are another one that jumps out at me. Because for years and years, it's just like Aaron Rodgers is going to at least get them to 10 wins. That division's weak as fuck. The Bears were really bad and just let Justin Fields run wild as though it was the last game in the world. There was literally never going to be another football game played after. They just let him run with reckless abandon. Yeah, big surprise he got hurt. But they queefed out a couple undeserved wins. And as far as undeserved wins go, the Steelers are a team that have gotten a few of those recently, and the Steelers just started off the year for the first 10 games as pretty much like the worst team in the league, like on a Texans level. And for the last few weeks, they have just played against teams who have completely checked out or are dealing with a bad coach or a bad quarterback situation, and they almost just win by default. Like they just played the Raiders and won 13-10. Mike Tomlin is secretly trying to maintain that record of not having a losing season. And it's just like, man, too little too late for Mike, but I think it does like say something about him that the team is still trying for him, even though they've well been eliminated for a long time now. Another thing too is like they were using worthless big dick Mitch Trubisky at the beginning of the year. And I think it's one of those funny things where you sit there to yourself and you ostentatiously give a guy like Trubisky the chance just because he was so highly rated and like highly drafted, and then you sort of realize and say to everyone like, okay, did everyone see that? Everyone see those first 6 games? Yeah, he was shit. Alright, that's why we're going to play Kenny Pickett, and that's why Big Dick Mitch is probably never going to find another NFL job. That guy's just horrible. It always baffles me when these college guys don't play anyone through their entire college career, and they're even in their tape, they don't look good, like the decision making doesn't look good, and there's question marks there, lack of sample size. With both Trubisky and Wilson, you're just sort of sitting there to yourself saying like, okay, but did they really play anyone? Did they show you that much in college to make you think, oh, we've got to get number 2? I'm not saying they weren't good enough to be drafted, taken in the second round as a backup, but these were guys framed as saviors of the team, and not even just by the media, but by the fucking teams based on how they drafted and treated them, and where they drafted them. And it's a disgusting little thing where we have to sit here and watch these sewer games week after week after week, and we know that Trubisky's never going to develop. I mean, we know that he's never going to be good. It's very obvious that he's never going to be good. And they're sort of running through the meme of pretending that he could have been good, and enough was enough, and then Pickett got some starts, and what do you know, they won a couple ugly games, but man, the Steelers are just horrific. And Najee Harris, my first round pick, there's a guy that I really didn't want to draft, and it's sort of like, oh, well, I've got to have a running back. There's not a receiver here that I really like either. And it's this brutal moment where, okay, I got a running back that's guaranteed 20 carries. And the Steelers are such an atrocity, and Harris so talentless that he would just run into the back of his line, modern Zeke Elliott style. And it was brutal to watch, and that was pretty much the epitome of the Steelers early this year. The Browns aren't any good. I think it's a complete throwaway year for them, and they will sort of do what they can to get Watson some help next season, and then they'll probably win 10 games with Watson and those running backs. There's always that. They're one of those teams where every offseason there's a stink about one of the running backs wanting to be out. Oh, Kareem Hunt's going to be traded. You'll probably have to hear that ostentatious bullshit all offseason again. Brutal. And the Bengals look good. I think that they're right there as far as if the Bills or Chiefs screw the pooch or choke or deal with the weird injury, the Bengals are right there to go back. I just don't really trust their line. I'm not sure how much I trust the Chiefs line either. Two of their guys have given up a plethora of pressures this season, two of their linemen. But if I think about the NFC East, I think the thing that jumps out at me is everyone thinking that the Cowboys are some Gosu legendary team, and when in reality they're just a touch above average. And I cannot wait to see them bomb out of the playoffs, whether it be to the Eagles or the Niners, who are going in with a third string quarterback and I don't really think are that much of a threat. I just do not think the Cowboys are going to make a deep run, but if you're a Cowboy fan and it's year after year after year of watching like Tom Brady make deep runs and win, Aaron Rodgers beat you in the playoffs, it feels like if you're a Cowboy fan, they're never going to win, especially if you were born in the 90s and didn't get to see those Aikman teams win. Well, this is one sort of unforeseen way that the Cowgirls can win, is the fact that the rest of the league has gone downhill so hard. In a hilarious twist of fate, like as the rest of the league went downhill, the NFC East sort of stayed just as good or got a little bit better. So now the NFC East is the best division in football. It's absolutely brutal just to consider how the Lions did today versus the Panthers, because I'm a big Panther fan. Even if the Panthers win out and win their joke division, they're going to get firing squatted in the playoffs. Hey, there's a team the Dallas Cowboys can beat in the playoffs, the fucking Carolina Panthers. But it's just an atrocity what that NFC South is. And again, if you look at another team that has just sort of gotten better based on how terrible everyone else is, the Seattle Seahawks. This was like a 3.5 out of 5, 3.5 out of 10, 4.5 out of 10 level team. Geno Smith, the epitome of average or below average. Pete Carroll did a good job of like getting the most out of that squad, but you really benefit from a lot of overhype. You really sit there and look around and say to yourself, if you're Pete Carroll, like, wow, the teams around me really aren't as good as they were supposed to be, and that helps a lot. And we can see here, Weston definitely benefited from that as Spencer fell to pieces down the stretch, and my division was a joke. And looking at Geno Smith in another light here as he played Kansas City and lost, this is like a, not to nitpick here, because it's like you roll with them all season, and you got Heineke and Watson as your other QBs, but it's hard to imagine winning a fantasy Super Bowl with Geno Smith. He's a great stream guy. He had way more points than people thought he would. Rank 7. He's the perfect embodiment of the sort of transition that the NFL is going through, or downward swing in product as far as quality goes, because when you look at a team like the Rams, this is Sean McVay, the vaunted genius mind, and a bunch of big names that are left over from the Super Bowl winning team. And we're talking about just unforced error after unforced error, like gross, disgusting incompetence. I'm not talking about them having a few bad weeks. That's what it looked like at the beginning of the year, like an anomaly or a slow start. But week after week of like non-competitive sewer performances. Same with the Cardinals, where it was just an absolute like browbeating, disgusting watching experience to watch like Cliff Kingsbury run it down mid, Kyler Murray like run around confused, and then not to be macabre, but it's like he almost mercifully blew his knee out this season. It's like we had 12 weeks of you eating shit and looking clueless, and now like you almost do just want to like quit and like punch the year because you're sitting there as a Cardinals fan, and all the Cardinals fans were saying to themselves, this is a make or break year. Like we sort of screwed around this season to the previous seasons to some extent. It was hit or miss. We underachieved, and we're really looking to win in these next few years with Kyler Murray. And it was horseshit, and it was worst case scenario. Your coach looked bad. Your team looked unprepared and uninspired. The defense was fucking just as porous as the Lions. And you were in a position where, even in an offense that was meant to catch up and play from behind and not just fall out of games and fall into unmanageable, long, drawn out deficits, you managed to play like that every week where not only were you losing, but it was like it looked like you were never going to win. Like you just weren't in a lot of these games. And if you were the Cards, you could take losing the games 35-30. You could take losing the game 42-35. What you couldn't take is your offense looking anemic and like shit because your entire win condition is for your offense to solo carry and Kyler Murray to be this crazy dynamic force and Kingsbury to be this great mind. And they're probably the most disappointing team this season. They've been horrific. Horrific. And them being bad have allowed teams like the Giants and Commanders to play pretend like they're good. And that's the sickening thing. And I think the thing that really stands out to me as far as things that were talked about in the preseason is the AFC division with the Chiefs, with the Raiders, and with the Broncos, and with the Chargers. Because this was a division where a lot of people were saying like, "Oh, is it possible for all these teams to make the playoffs? Can you have all three wild cards from one division? Wow, all these teams might win 10 games." Just drinking the free agent Kool-Aid. You know, everyone who did this wasn't considering one thing, coaching. A lot of the cretins saying this were predicting the Chiefs to finish third or fourth, sometimes even missing the playoffs. I know that sounds hilarious and like it's not true, but there were legitimately people trying to come up with hot takes like the Chiefs might miss the playoffs because the Raiders are like really good. Like I've been being told that Derek Carr's elite since 2015. I've been told this ad nauseum. So you add the biggest name receiver in the league and they have to be great. Turns out coaching's a thing. Oh, the Chargers, they have a dynamic young quarterback, a couple big receivers, a big name running back, flashy defense with some big names. Turns out coaching's a thing. Oh, the Chiefs are going to be bad. This was a narrative that was actually bandied about by more than one writer. Oh, the Chiefs are down for a they're due for a down year. Downs. That's what these fucking writers that wrote this shit had. And you know what happened? Andy Reid's still really fucking good. And Eric Bieniemy's basically a fucking mascot that they tried to meme into having his contract taken by some unwilling team. But that division that got so much hype was just ridiculous. That was that's what happens when you have a media that wants to talk NFL 365 days a year, and you have that long ass off season and the boring, terrible, terrible preseason that nobody wants to watch. It's like they have to come up with the talking point. Oh, how great is this division going to be? And then the coup de grace, the most dick road team of them all, the Broncos, with one of the most dick road players ever, Russell Wilson, and he looked washed the last couple years in Seattle, and big fucking surprise, he got traded and looks even more washed. Honestly, I didn't even think it would look this bad. I thought with their much vaunted defense, they would at least be average. They weren't. They were a fucking humiliation. Jerry Jeudy can't stay healthy. I thought Sutton would be able to get a decent amount of yards because they let Russ throw a lot of deep passes. He wasn't great. And overall, that division's a joke. But whenever I think about Super Bowl implications here as far as fantasy goes, it's going to be Christian and Weston, and I think Weston will probably win. But good on AB for winning the division. And when I think about real life Super Bowl implications, I'm thinking Bills Chiefs in the AFC, and it'll be the Chiefs. And then I'm thinking the Eagles are going to play the Niners. Because if you look at the rest of the team, none of the teams from the South are any good. I don't trust the Cowgirls at all. And the Niners are sort of like what's left. I think the Eagles are far and away the best team in the NFC, and they're the team that I would be scared of, like most certainly. Even the Eagles with Gardner Minshew are better than a lot of these scrub teams, like New Orleans, who they already have 9 losses, but like a lot of it's still up in play there in the South. Like the Bucks aren't any good this year. The Commanders, the Giants, like they're better than those guys. So just honestly, the thing that jumps out at me about this week was how Detroit lost and how it looked like for weeks they were improving and gradually getting better and sort of maintaining this offensive capability they showed, but then really developing that grit that Coach Dan Campbell always talks about. But man, to get shitholed like a team, get shitholed by a team like Carolina, who's just straight up not any good, and it's really depressing. So that is the TWIF video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Easy.